Hello everyone and welcome to my MagickaWarden build for the Summerset patch. This build will involve heavy armor and MagickaWarden together. So don't freak out, it's doable. Maybe a little bit harder than wearing light armor, but you will be tankier on Zergs with less damage. You trade in damage for a little bit being more tankier. This is mostly a support build. You can run this solo. I ran that solo in the previous patch, and this patch will be the same. Even if we don't have a class stun, that is not our ultimate, but it's still viable, since we need to use our ultimates to get off the pressure and damage, so nothing will change much. We are running 5 pieces of heavy Shackle Breaker. This is a very general and good set overall. It gives spell damage, magical recovery, stamina recovery, and both magicka and stamina, as you can see. All is impenetrable, and this set goes along very well with the food we are using. We are using Witch Mother that gives us magical recovery. Why this? Because Witch Mother doesn't give us maximum stamina, and since we are in heavy armor and we are with sword and board, we need stamina to block. That's why we are using Shackle Breaker. He gives us the extra stamina. As 2 pieces of monster set, we are using 2 pieces of Malubet. I find this very strong because MagickaWarden has healing over time effects. Everything is a healing over time effect, and when the beam of Malubet is up, you gain major vitality, and it's mostly needed because if you're not using Vine, for example, as Vine already intended the teleport that Warden has, if you're not using that, the healing of MagickaWarden is not very good. It can be a little bit bursty, but it's nothing exceptional. It pales in comparison with Templar. So I recommend using Valuet. Has another 5-piece set. We are using Lich, has 3 jewelry, and 2 with sword and board. The axe is near north because of the damage increase, but also the spell damage, influences the healing effect. And we are using healing on our sword and board bar. As a staff, we are using the Master Ice Staff because this is a build centered on the ice-themed warden. I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to use the bird because I don't like it very much. So yeah, the best is using the Master Ice Staff. If you don't have it or you don't want to farm Maelstrom Arena, you can go for a Willpower Ice Staff. It's the same, but you won't be using the Destructive touch ability. That is too expensive without the Master Staff. So you would want to be using the Dive or Cliff Fraser. As enchants, all is Magicka, apart from 2 pieces that are maximum stats, the 3 stats. I find these 2 pieces very convenient. And as jewelry, all spell damage. As skills, we are running on our buff bar, leaving trails. That is a nice healing over time effect. I kinda use it as a compare it to a damage mitigation because it's every time you get hit, you heal, so it's kinda acts like a damage mitigation. But the healing over time effect that's actually 6k unbuffed, and it's reasonable for its cost. It costs nothing actually. It doesn't cost much, and you can give it to your allies. You can give it to yourself, and if you use it and recast it, you are receiving. Oh, I'm not buff. You are receiving the whole healing. For a group play, I'm using the Nature Embrace. That's the Vine I told you before. The teleport, a big heal over time effect, and a big help while going around because If you're playing with a stamina friend that is immune to snares with these abilities, you can actually go around as if you were him, because you constantly teleport to him and you can outrun the Zerg. I tried it many times with the Nightblade that I could cloak and I could teleport to him cloaked, and it functioned very well. The third skill is Shimmery Shield, a very nice defense against snipes, etc. Everything that is a projectile, and the buff, a really good buff that is Major Heroism. Blue Betty for Magic in the Major Sorcery, and for the passives on Animal Companions, you need to have Animal Companion skill on your bar to receive the Flourish passive, and Icy Fortress, damage mitigation and Major Resolve and Ward. As ultimate on our buff bar, we are using Permafrost. This is mostly used as counter-attacking because enemy that will be hit by this skill 3 times, they will get stunned. It's an earth stun, so they can't defend themselves from it. They will be stunned and snared. As damage, we are using Frost Witch. That's the main spammable with the Master Staff. Deep Fissure, our big damage Howie, and Major Breach. Blockade of Frost. This is actually better than our class AoE because our class AoE doesn't have the passive which gives the Blockade of Frost to ignore 10% of enemy spell resistance. That's a big deal. And also the area is bigger. As our fourth skill is a Corrupted Pollen. It's a healing skill, but if you see well, you will see that it's a big ground major defile. You put it down, you stand on it, this is your house now, and anyone that goes in, it's defiled. A big, also it's a very nice synergy for your allies. As our fifth skill, it's Inner Light. This is here just for the passive of Mage Guild and for the 5% more magicka, giving us more magicka to deal. Ice Comet for the Ice Team Warden, and because it's cool. I could use the. You can swap it for Soul Assault in solo gameplay, but for group stance that you won't be using this much, you will be using more often Permafrost. And since this could be a useless slot for our ultimate, Ice Comet gives you more max magicka as passive for the Mage Guild, so it's good to have. I forgot to say that on my stuff I'm using the shock enchant. Why the shock and not the spell damage? The spell damage, in my opinion, lasts too little, and the shock damage gives base shock damage more the concussion. If the target that gets concussed, it takes 8% more damage with minor vulnerability. So we could actually balance it out with the spell damage more. Yeah, it's nice. I really like it. As I'm Breton, I forgot to say. As you can see, my max magicka on my damage bar is fairly high, and on my buff bar is high as well. Our magicka recovery on our buff bar is more because we're missing on our damage bar 1 Lich recovery, but since we're a Lich, we don't care it much. Our maximum health is kinda low for being in heavy armor, but Warden has a nice passive that every time you heal yourself when taking damage, you get 10% more maximum health. So this will be bumped to a full 27-28k, I forgot. And our maximum stamina is fairly high as well, with Shacklebreaker. Our spell damage unbuffed is 2100. Buffed, you see this. Prime skill again. You will see in a second. It's 2500. Fairly decent for being in heavy armor. Our spell resistance is high, of course, because we are in heavy, and in our buff bar is even more because of the shield. We are a vampire, and we run the Atronach Mundus for extra recovery. The vampire for the extra recovery and for the damage mitigation when down health. Our CPs are fairly high on spell erosion. We are in heavy armor. We don't have the spell penetration light armor has, so it's fairly good to have some points here. Earthborn is not very high because we are in heavy armor, so our crit chance is lower than light. Elemental Expert for the frost damage and magic damage base, and Blast for more healing. 20 in Shattering Blows because of those pesky shields. We want to break them, so fairly investing here. It's a must. Staff Expert for the recent changes on Summerset patch. We want to have at least 3 points for 2% more of the huge increase light attacks did have in this patch. And Master at Arms for direct damage effects like our spammable. Thaumaturgy for damage over time effects. I have little of them, but since Blockade is a damage over time, I invested a little here. As a red champion skills, we have Ironclad, reducing the damage overall. Resistance, some point in critical resistance are a must. Thick-skinned, we are no temporal, and the single dot removal we have for the bettinage, it's not much, so we need to invest here. More in RD than in Elemental Defender because I'm a Breton. If you run everything that is not a Breton, you may want this even. But since Breton have a huge buff as Wretched passive against Magicka, you can run more in the Hardy scaling. And if you're running, for example, an Argonian, I forgot to mention, if you're running an Argonian, you might want to replace a Lich with something that does damage, for example, because you don't need, like War Maiden maybe. No, actually not War Maiden. Something like Spell Power Cure is a good example because of the healing over time you will be up most of the time, so Spell Power Cure is a good set. But yeah, for the passives, Argonian are best to not have any support sets, any sustain set. They're good to go with the passives. Damn lizards. As the Lord, we are having in quick recovery. I like this champion point because actually when getting pummeled you count off this quick recovery often, and since again we are healing over time effect, every healing we have, if it's more it's best. And some in the expert defender because of the recent patch on light attacks. On the green we have Siphoner for dealing more, for reducing the enemy magic stamina and health recovery a little, and Warlord for breaking free. I dumped some points here for more speed, but you can choose if to dump them there, here on the file, it's the same. 75 in Arcanist, we are only heavy, and with Lich this actually pretty much it's the best CP to invest in. The more recovery we have, the better, because it will affect also the Lich proc. Tenacity, since we are in heavy armor, we get a boost on heavy attack, magicka and stamina returns, so a little bit on tenacity is fair. 81 in Shadow Ward, we want to block, we have a nice staff and we have a sword and board. The ice staff doesn't have the try focus passive, in which you can see your frost attacks now will block, your frost block will now cost magicka instead of stamina. We don't want this, we want to spend our stamina for blocking. And with Shadow Ward we lower the block with frost and the shield. If you don't know, the frost staff acts like a shield in which you have the block cost reduction. Tumbling for Summer Dodge and 1 point dumped here for Befoul. If you want to run a little bit more cancerous build, you can put more here for your flowers, but I really don't like it. Nah, it's not my style to dump points on a broken CP. So this is my build for the patch. Hope you like it, and kill those crabs in Cyrodiil.